This is the most ridiculous gaming handheld I've ever used. It's the Lenovo Legion Go Gen 2. This is what we've been waiting for, right? The refreshed second generation of proper gaming handheld with better specs and refined designs and just, quality of life improvements, given that this is now the second generation. So what's new and what makes this special? Well, let's start with the second question. There's a few things. Obviously the size, 8.8 inches. It is by far the biggest handheld you can buy. Lenovo also claimed that you'll get best-in-class performance with this, given we have the Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip, although the Z2 on the cheaper version of this, and also much improved cooling thanks to these ridiculously big exhaust vents and some refinements inside. So top-of-the-line performance for a gaming handheld. It's also a Windows PC, which means that obviously you can access all the different game stores. It's not just Steam OS, so you have the most versatility when it comes to, well, just playing all the games out there and also just using it like a proper gaming PC. You're not confined by anything. But it's also a Windows PC, which means it's a finicky, buggy, kind of horrible experience. That's why most of the time they try to encourage you just use the Legion space. That's where all the games are sort of put into one area that you can fire up. But of course, the party trick really of the Legion Go is the fact that we have these detachable, I was about to say Joy-Cons. No, these are True Strike controllers. So you can use it with this little kickstand like that. With this guy, which comes bundled in the box, you can pop that in there and it becomes a proper little mouse. And if you switch underneath here to FPS mode, you can be a lot more precise. So it's a big, very powerful Windows gaming portable handheld with detachable controllers. There's a lot you can do with this. But all that was the case with the original one. What is new with this second generation version? Well, actually quite a bit. We obviously have the new chips. We've got the Ryzen Z2 and Z2 Extreme. The screen's been upgraded from IPS to OLED, and it's still 8.8 inches, 144 Hz. We still have VRR, 500 nits of brightness, and it's been certified for the Display HDR True Black 1000 standard. It was already like the best gaming screen, but now with OLED, it is absolutely stunning. They've significantly improved the cooling. We have much larger exhaust vents. They've refined the controls, better speakers. They've added a fingerprint reader to the power button. And maybe best of all, we have a much bigger battery. It's 50% larger. We've gone from 49.2 watt hours to 74. And you can still get it with 32 gigs of RAM and up to 2 terabytes of storage, although you can still expand the storage via a micro SD card. So for some reason, I actually have two Legion Go Gen 2s right now. It's a FedEx issue, don't worry about it. One has to go back, unfortunately. But let's talk about battery life. That is the biggest issue when it comes to handhelds, particularly the Legion Go. And I think it's fair to say the original one had probably the worst battery among all the sort of handhelds, especially the Windows handhelds. I have good news. Obviously, we talked about the fact that they have increased the capacity by 50%. We now have a 74 watt hour battery, which is still smaller than the 80 watt hours you get in the Xbox ROG Ally, and that's also a smaller screen and IPS. So while I haven't compared them directly yet, I would imagine the Xbox handheld, basically Asus handheld, will have a slightly longer battery life. But I tested Cyberpunk running at high settings, at native resolution, 144 Hz, full performance mode, max fan speed, all the bells and whistles. On the original Legion Go, I got around an hour 35-ish. With this, I got about 2 hours and 15. And also this is running non-final software. So just in that particular test, I've seen about a 35% increase in battery life, which is pretty significant. And in terms of a more sort of everyday use case, slightly less demanding games, you drop the resolution a little bit, which I probably would recommend, you'll get about 3.25 hours out of one of these guys. And if you just play the simplest games at sort of 50% brightness, then you could push this up to maybe 5 hours. So it lasts longer, but how much faster is it with this new Z2 Extreme chip? Well, in F125, running at native 1200p, 144 Hz, full performance mode, and medium settings, I averaged 78 frames per second. Although the minimum was 3, I have experienced some pretty terrible 1% lows, but I think that could be a software issue. Dropping the resolution down to 1000p bumps the frame rate up by 9%, but then dropping down to 100p, again, same settings, we break triple digits. Then in Cyberpunk, full resolution, 144 Hz, medium settings, I averaged 58 frames per second, but dropping the resolution down to 1000p, it bumped it up by 44% to 84 FPS average, and then down to 800p, again, we break triple digits with 102 average. Although those tests were run with the power plugged in. On battery life, I saw a 15% drop in F125 and a 20% drop in Cyberpunk, which is not nothing, but your best gaming experience will be when you have it plugged in. So broadly speaking, we're talking a 20 to 30% uptick in performance and about a 30% improvement to battery life. That's not too shabby for Gen 2. Now in terms of the actual design, while it looks very similar to the Gen 1, they've actually made some really nice upgrades. Like the side is a lot more ergonomic, it feels a lot more comfortable, it actually feels a little bit smaller because it sort of curves round here, it's a more of a rounded corner. They've split these buttons into two here, we've got a larger area for the speaker. They've tweaked these buttons a little bit to make it less likely you'll accidentally press them, but you really do have a lot of buttons on here. There's two over here, there's one here, you've got a scroll wheel, which also is a button, you've got the triggers, shoulder buttons, and of course we still have the touchpad, which a lot of people love, particularly for strategy games, and most other handhelds don't offer that. So you really have a lot of options for controlling it, and of course being able to detach them. Yes, sir. There is a lot going on here, and while it is certainly refined versus the Gen 1, it's still far from perfect. Like, this is such a heavy device. It's about 920 grams, just a hair over 2 pounds.
And the screen is much better for sure. I wouldn't say the bigger the better. This is a good size though. Look at that.
This thing's huge.
Look at the smile.
The graphics are great. I mean, I can't believe the size of it though. Very chunky.
I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're using it like a tablet mode with a stand set up, but in handheld, I mean, if you're going from using this to touching the screen, the amount of weight and pressure on one of the sides so then you can interact with the touchscreen. And I have to be honest, I really don't like the way you detach these controllers. You press the button down here and then pull down. It does work, but there's no sort of satisfying press to this. It's really kind of uncomfortable and doesn't feel very nice. And the weight of it, you have to kind of grab the screen. Like, I thought I'd attached that properly. I think I'm maybe even more frustrated by how difficult it is to reattach. In fact, let me just try it now. I'm not doing this for like comic effect. I'm trying to, there we go. Right, there you go. But having used a Switch 2, and given the fact this is a Gen 2 device, I really had hoped they'd improve this mechanism because it's just clunky, it's inconsistent, and it just doesn't feel premium, particularly when you factor in the price of this thing. There is a couple of things that have been downgraded. Firstly, it's thicker and it's heavier. It's actually about 60 grams heavier and about 2 millimeters thicker versus the original. And then we have the screen, which I still think is the best on a handheld out there right now. I mean, 8.8 inches, 144 Hz, VRR, OLED, but the resolution's been downgraded. Previously, it was 2560 by 1600, now it's 1920 by 1200. Still 16 by 10 aspect ratio, but we've basically gone from Quad HD Plus down to Full HD Plus, which makes sense. I think the vast majority of people who gamed on the original Go would have dropped it down to 1200p or even 800p to get better frame rates and also better battery life. However, when it comes to window scaling, technically, if you have the original Legion Go and the Legion Go 2, both running at 800p, the old one will be a little bit sharper because it's scaled by half rather than by a third. That's the only ever so slight downside. In practice, it's not a big deal. Window scaling is fine these days. And if you are going to game at 1280 by 800, then it's not going to be the sharpest thing anyway. But the flip side of that is that because we have the new chip, the better performance, it means that you can get away with even AAA gaming at native resolution at 1920 by 1200. So you might not even want to drop the resolution like you almost certainly would with the original one. And what I genuinely love about this is just the level of customization. Resolution, frame rate, fan curves, the RGB around the joysticks, the vibration, the controllers, detached mode, handheld mode, tablet mode. I also want to give a mention to the vibration, the HD haptic feedback. You can switch it between different game genres, you can change the intensity of it, but I really like the little vibration you get in the controller, particularly when you're playing a racing game or you're shooting in an FPS. It really does add to that kind of immersive factor. Quite honestly, this is not designed for the same audience who might buy a Switch 2 or a Steam Deck OLED, those sort of pick up and play easy consoles. This is for someone who, well, has a lot of money, but also just wants the best performance, the best screen, and just like crazy versatility, upgradability, modability. This is designed for like the enthusiast gamer. What would have made this even better though would be if the whole thing was like 10% smaller. Give me an 8-inch screen, reduce the weight by sort of 10-15%, make it a little bit thinner, just make it more compact. Also, I really wish they would come up with a better mechanism for these controllers. Also, it's very expensive. This Z2 Extreme version will cost you £1,099, or in the US, $1,349. Although there is a cheaper option if you go for the lower power Z2 chip. So it is far from perfect, but the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is a big step up versus the original, and I'm having a blast with it. Even if sometimes it makes me want to pull my hair out, but some of those things may be fixed with software. As I say, this is a non-final version. So make sure you hit that subscribe button because I'm going to do a full handheld buying guide, including the MSI Claw A8, including the Xbox ROG Ally. But in the meantime, let me know what you make of the Legion Go 2. Would you be tempted to spend $1,350 on this? Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.